was on the list, I believe. Yeah.
He was on the list. One of the more iconic actors of the 90s, Matthew Perry, star of Friends from back in the day, one of the more popular shows of the 90s. Apparently, he died after drowning, according to TMZ, in a jacuzzi, which I don't know if you've seen many of the details here, but they said that there are more details surfacing about the circumstances. Sources say that he had some sort of physical activity in the morning, and then he he had 2 hours of pickleball, and he sent his assistant out to run some errands shortly after, where when the assistant returned, he discovered Matthew Perry unresponsive and called 911. So we don't really know how it happened outside of he was in a jacuzzi, and apparently he had a I don't know, maybe a heart attack, maybe he drowned. It says drowning, but I don't know how you drown in a jacuzzi. There's a lot of questions that are
Passed
here.
out, something. Yeah. When I heard it immediately, I thought drinking mishap,
Right.
maybe
Drugs,
something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe alcohol. I know he had hardcore drinking and substance abuse problems back in the day. I don't know if he still had them, but
Well, it's been said that there were no drugs at the residence, or at least at the scene of the crime. And the LAPD's official statement about Perry's death over the weekend, and I'm going to read this off verbatim because I don't want to screw it up, says, noting the actor was, quote, discovered by a witness unresponsive in his jacuzzi. The Los Angeles City Fire Department responded to the scene and pronounced Perry deceased. Due to the celebrity status of Mr. Perry, detectives from Robbery Homicide Division responded to the scene and concluded a preliminary investigation. Although there was no obvious signs of trauma, the official cause of Perry's death is pending a coroner's investigation. So that's kind of where it's at right now. I think this hit a lot of people over the weekend. It was just kind of one of those things where you see and you go, holy shit, Matthew Perry.
Everyone kind of forgot that the last major headline involving Matthew Perry was him going to Epstein Island a bunch of times. We got over that like a drunken stupor.
Is that true? Is that a thing?
He was on the list, I believe. Yeah.
He was on the list. Blabs, search it up.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right. It's interesting. But he obviously is known for his role as Chandler on Friends, and he was in several other movies. And my wife was a huge Friends fan back in the day. And for me, I kind of caught into it at much later after it was done. But I've watched a lot just because it was on Netflix for a while, and now I don't even know where it's on, but it's always on TV, some way, shape, or form. So it's still making ridiculous money, and it still has a cultural impact. Some people have gone and they've done the modernized thing, and then they've said, oh, well, there was such a lack of diversity in the show. And it's like, well, there was lesbians and I think there was an interracial marriage at some point. There was all these, I would say it was actually fairly progressive for its time, but
yeah. I mean, Phoebe married a gay guy and all that.
No, I don't think that criticism holds water at all. It's just the main cast were a bunch of white hipsters. That's what the show was about, though. That was the premise. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous.
I can't find him on the list, I'll be honest.
Okay.
All I see is that he went to school with Trudeau when he was younger because he's Canadian.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things when you Google it, it's not easy. You don't exactly get a full list. But yeah, no. I do seem to remember his name being on there along with Bill Gates and Matt Groening of The Simpsons and so forth.
Right. Rich points out, it says, Perry's last Facebook post shows him in his giant hot tub with headphones on, saying how relaxing it is. Could have just fallen asleep. Right,
but could have just died in his sleep, but he's 54. But he did have all that drug abuse. He definitely wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know how you fall asleep and then we're not talking about a pool. We're talking about a hot tub where your feet are on the ground.
Yeah.
Right. How do you fall asleep and then just drown?
Well, they said a parent drowning. What if he didn't actually drown? He just died in the jacuzzi.
I don't know. These are all questions that we don't know. And I think, obviously you have some people saying, there's always going to be the conspiracy folks online. There's always going to be the people who know exactly what happened, even though they never met the guy,
Right.
But
It was I got it. It was Professor Plum with the rope in the conservatory. That's what it was.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I think we nailed it right there.
Yes.
We nailed it. Labs, this hits you pretty hard though, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like, oh my god, I'm crying over it. I was probably more upset about Carrie Fisher dying. But when I was a kid, every summer I'd go to my library and rent like the Friends box set along with like Everybody Loves Raymond. Those were two shows I watched all the time as a kid. So I'm just like, nah, that's my childhood right there. So every summer I'd get a bunch of DVDs instead of reading books. But you know. I had a good time, and Chandler was always my favorite character. He was always my favorite. Like, I loved him from like when I was a kid on. So I'm like, he was the best one. He made everybody laugh the most. So
yeah, he was kind of the Kramer of the show, right? He was the
Mhm.
most. He was the one who most people thought was the funniest.
Mhm.
On the
Right.
show.
He definitely the comedic, and that was one of the bits on the show was you never knew what his job was. They go, well, what does Chandler do? And nobody had really any idea.
Transponder. He's a transponder. Yeah.
What?
That's what the show. That was what they were saying in the show. It was a quiz on the show. Like, what is Chandler's job? And the girls are like, oh, he's a transponder. And they're like, what is that? That's not even a word. So yeah. And then they had to swap apartments.
And for gamers, for all the side scrollers fans out there who are more into the gaming, he of course was immortalized in Fallout New Vegas as the guy who shoots you at the beginning. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start. That was Matthew Perry.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
Wow.
in gaming, had a very, very prominent role in a very, very prominent RPG that people still play to this day.
Wow, that's interesting.
Did you know that he didn't even remember like filming 3 years of Friends because of so much drug abuse?
Well, it makes sense. He said that you could tell what he was hooked on based off of his physical appearance in the show.
Yeah, he'd be really skinny and then really large.
Yeah, he'd get bloated depending on what he was hooked on. It was alcohol. He was really bloated. If he was on, whatever drugs, he was super skinny. Yeah, absolutely. Pretty interesting stuff. By the way, Rich says that the hot tub was pool sized. Well, if that's the case, like, don't call it a hot tub, call it a pool, right?
And you've got at that point you have a heated pool. That's
right. Right.
What the fuck?
Perry's family said in a statement to People, I'm going to read this off, says, "We are heartbroken by the tragic loss of our beloved son and brother. Matthew brought so much joy to the world, both as an actor and a friend. You all meant so much to him, and we appreciate the tremendous outpouring of love." Well, I mean, that's a natural statement to make, and it's short, concise, and probably written by a publicist. But yeah, obviously just tough to see. What is the celebrity death that hits you the hardest, Razor? Or
Lemmy.
have you had one?
Lemmy for Motorhead, no
What
question. Because it meant Motorhead went away at that point. It wasn't just that Lemmy died and he was an icon in his own right and a pop culture icon and whatever. And he died right around the same time as David Bowie, if I'm not mistaken, like right within like the same year or something like that. But yeah, him, Dio, those would be more so on the music side. But I don't know. In terms of actors, I don't know. Charles Bronson died long before I was paying attention.
Robin Williams.
It always comes back to Charles Bronson.
Yes,
Robin Williams, huh? Yeah.
Robin Williams, Carrie Fisher.
I mean, Michael Jackson was crazy out of nowhere. That was crazy because it felt like I had just been watching his press conference about the comeback tour. I was one of the people who watched it live online and counted down and was ready for it and whatever. And he was about ready to do his big tour. And then it was like, boom, he's dead. Just out of nowhere.
That's a question for the chat. You guys let us know in the comments as well. What celebrity hit you the hardest? You know what it was for me? And I'll tell you exactly what it was. Robin Williams was
Kangaroo.
Kangaroo?
What? From Winnie the Pooh?
No. But you're on the same wavelength.
Art Linkletter.
Incorrect. It was Jim Henson. That's the one that hit me the hardest as a kid. I remember I must have been 7 or 8 years old, maybe 9 when he died. And I remember hearing that Jim Henson died on the news and being so struck by Jim Henson dying that being as a kid, I walked outside and we had a trampoline in our backyard. And I walked back in the backyard and I just put my hands behind my head and I laid on the trampoline and I just looked at the sky for probably 20 minutes thinking like, wow, Jim Henson is dead. That's crazy. And that one like really shook me to my core.
I was
by the way,
I was
I
too
had to
young
Google
to.
him.
Oh, I'm sorry, Blabs. Go ahead.
I said I had to Google him. I don't know.
Jim Henson?
Jim Henson,
Yeah, go fuck
the
yourself, Blab.
Muppets.
Get out of here. All right, get out of here. I'm not dealing with that bullshit.
Craig deplatforming women. Fucking
That's right.
misogyny.
Get out of here. Get out. No, you're out. She can put herself back in. I'll take her ass back out. That's ridiculous. I had to Google Jim Henson.
You're fired. You're fired.
Oh my God, just ridiculous. Don't laugh. Jim Henson is dead, and the Muppets have never recovered.
They've never sounded right. And
They
now we
never
got a
sound the
fake.
same since.
Now we got a fake Count Von Count on Sesame Street. Oh, the new Count Von Count is terrible.
Don't even understand.
Terrible.
It's ridiculous. Jim Henson, who is the voice of Kermit the Frog and the creator of the Muppets, Blabs, right?
Ah.
If you go back and you listen to Kermit the Frog back then and you listen to him now, it is a stark difference. There will never, ever, ever be another Jim Henson and Kermit the Frog. Rest in peace,
Craig?
Matthew Perry.
Also, I want to point out Steve Irwin also hit me hard when I was a kid in 2006. That was rough.
Yeah.
I was
Like the funniest thing is him hunting crocodiles for years, and then he gets killed by a fucking fish.
yeah, a stingray and freaking stabs him in the heart. I was like, ah!
You didn't see that one coming.
No, that was terrible. I was so upset. I used to watch Steve Irwin stuff all the time as a kid. I even had like the board games and stuff, like Crocodile Hunter and all that. The little crocodile go like this in the game. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
What a nerd.
Shut up. You watched the Muppets at like age 40.
Ooh, someone just pointed out a really good one. Andre the Giant. That was huge when we were
Oh.
kids. That was huge back in the day.
Blabs, I'll have you know, literally last night, I watched the Muppets Haunted Mansion with my kids. Literally last night. And you know what I thought the entire time?
I'm not old enough for this.
I thought to myself, that motherfucker doesn't sound like Jim Henson. That's what I thought.
You're a phony, a big fat phony.
Piece of shit.
I think Brian Henson does a good Kermit and whatever. Like, I think he did a good Kermit after his dad died because Brian Henson's a really good voice actor. But all the other characters that he did, and they've never sounded right since then. None of them have sounded right.
Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here.
Right.
So sad. Oh, I love him so much. But what do you think about this? Leave us a comment down below. We read every single one of them. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button because you have found your home for common sense in the gaming and entertainment worlds.